Shalom. I am Rabbi Miriam Spitzer of Temple Israel in Scranton. This sermon is called Wiping Out the Amalek Within Us, and it was given on Shabbat Zachor, March 4th, 5783. Today is Shabbat Zachor, the Shabbat before Purim, when we are enjoined to remember Amalek, the desert nation that attacked the people of Israel soon after they left Egypt. We took out an extra Torah and read about how the Amalekites viciously attacked, not the warriors at the front of the march, but the stragglers, the very young and the very old and the very sick at the end of the march. We read about Amalek again in the Haftarah for Shabbat Zachor. Hundreds of years later, when Israel was a sovereign nation, the prophet Samuel approached the man he had anointed as the first king of Israel and told Shaul to fulfill the command of God to rid the world of the evil of Amalek. He was to kill every Amalekite person, every Amalekite animal. So King Saul gathered his army, and they marched against Amalek, who were then residing near the borders of Israel. The army found the Amalek and destroyed them, leaving only King Agag and the best of the livestock alive. God then told Samuel, "I regret that I made Shaul king, for he has turned away from me and has not carried out my commands." It fell to the prophet Samuel to bring the bad news to King Saul. He was not going to establish a dynasty. His line would not retain the crown of Israel. And so it came to pass much later that Shaul and his son Jonathan were slain together in a battle against the Philistines, and David became king of Israel, the same David that we still sing, David Melech Israel. But we really have to ask, what was the sin of Shaul? What did he do that was so terrible? The text itself and the commentators make it clear that the first sin of Shaul was that he did not entirely fulfill God's command. He was told to kill everyone, all the people, and all the animals. But he spared the king, and he spared the best of the flocks. He did not obey the command of God completely. Furthermore, when he was called on the carpet, he tried to blame his misdeed on his troops. The soldiers wanted sacrifices, he said. The soldiers wouldn't kill good animals, he said. I was afraid of the troops and I yielded to them, he said. But what kind of a leader follows his people? Shaul was the king. Shaul should set the rules, not the people. The text, and even more so the commentators, make it clear that Shaul was a follower rather than a leader. He bowed to pressure from those whom he should have led, and that was his second mistake. But somehow, neither of these explanations are quite adequate. After all, what exactly was the sin of Shaul? Just that he did not finish wiping out an entire tribe of people as he was commanded to do. We moderns tend to find the command more troubling than Shaul's disobedience, by some margin. We can agree that when Amalek attacked Israel from the rear, they epitomized evil. But that was hundreds of years before the story in 1 Samuel. Was Shaul to hold an entire people accountable for the actions of their ancestors hundreds of years before? Was Shaul really to kill children and babies because they were born into the wrong group? And what about the animals? What could they have possibly done wrong? We tend to agree with Shaul and his troops. Of course they spared the animals. Why waste them? Our sympathies are with Shaul. Okay, so he did not complete the command. And okay, he let his troops get away with taking booty when they were instructed not to. But should the poor fellow really lose his kingdom over this? And so we give a second look at the story, and we ask what actually happened. Shaul was told to annihilate Amalek, so he gathered an army to do so. He warned other tribes that lived near Amalek to get out of the way. Shaul did not object to the command of God. Shaul did not argue the relative morality of the situation. Shaul agreed to his instructions and set out to fulfill them. Then he decimated most of the people, including the children and the babies and the lame and the infirm and the old. He spared only the king and whatever was of value among the flocks of Amalek. What did Amalek do that time in the desert? They attacked the weak and the powerless, the stragglers in back of the column, and spared the strong and the powerful. And what did Shaul do? He spared the strong and powerful among the people, that is, the king, and spared the strong and powerful among the flocks, killing only what was enfeebled and weak and weary among the people and the flocks. The sin of Shaul was that he became like Amalek. Just as Amalek attacked the powerless and spared the strong, so too Shaul killed the powerless and spared the strong. Amalekite behavior from a king of Israel was unacceptable in any circumstances. So Shaul lost his kingdom. There was a pogrom in the Palestinian town of Huwara this week. A pogrom committed by Jews. The Jews were legitimately grieved and legitimately angry over the deaths of 2 Jewish boys at the hands of terrorists. But only Amalek goes on a riotous rampage, burning houses and cars and attacking people that had nothing to do with the terrorist action. Bezalel Smotrich, minister in the Israeli cabinet, said that the town of Huwara should be wiped out. Kevan shani choshev she'et hakfar Huwara tzarich limchok. Limchok, almost the same word that the Torah uses to blot out Amalek. Woe to us when Jews behave like Amalek and when members of the government support such horrific action. We read this before Purim to remind ourselves that we are not Amalek and we must not behave like Amalek, ever. The Torah commands us, Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek, to remember what Amalek did to us, and also Timche et zecher Amalek mitachat hashamayim, to blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under the skies. It is a paradox. How can we both remember Amalek and wipe out the memory of Amalek? The paradox is explained when we realize that we must remember the methods and the deeds of Amalek so that we can wipe out any traces of similar methodology from ourselves. We no longer believe in evil by bloodline, if indeed we ever did believe in it. But we certainly know, and we certainly feel the temptation to return evil for evil, to incorporate the methods of our enemies in order to fight our enemies. Unfortunately, we in this generation are no strangers to the acts of Amalek. We all know that Amalek is alive and well in this century, in this time. We all feel the need for vengeance, for doing to them what they are doing to us. But on Shabbat Zachor, we remember and we pledge that we will not become like Amalek. We will not do what Amalek does. We are better than that. We must be better than that. We remember Amalek on the Shabbat before Purim because Haman too was an Amalekite. But it's more than that. One of the mitzvot of Purim is to bring mishloach manot, Purim goodies, to our friends and neighbors. Did you ever wonder what gifts of food have to do with Purim besides for the fact that they're mentioned in the Megillah? By giving Purim plates to our friends, by giving Purim tzedakah called matanot levyonim to the poor, we are saying with our actions that we are different from Amalek. Amalek attacked the powerless. We support the powerless. Amalek valued only what is strong. We look beyond strength for value. We share, we give, we protect, and thus we wipe out the memory of Amalek from under the skies. That is what Purim is all about. May you have a happy Purim holiday. Amen.